Good morning, everyone. I am Lauren Longmire. I'm the Director of Regional Enhancement for the Knoxville Chamber. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're so grateful to have all of you here today for our Untapped Talent program as we hear from some great panelists about the benefits of a diverse, inclusive workforce and hiring individuals with traditional barriers to employment. Our mission of driving regional economic prosperity means economic prosperity for all. When we as a community intentionally hire populations with barriers, we make Knoxville a place everyone can not only live, but thrive. Throughout today's presentation, please feel free to enter any questions that you have into the Q&A panel you should see on your screen. And we'll work to answer those after the panelists are done as time allows. Before we get started, though, I would love to take an opportunity to introduce one of the Knoxville Chamber sponsors to say a few words. Accenture sponsors the Knoxville Chamber's talent ecosystem. The support of our sponsors allows us to do things like develop internship engagement programming and launch talent attraction campaigns. We appreciate their support and investment in the Chamber's mission in our community. Please allow me to introduce Clifford Brown, Associate Director at Accenture. Clifford.
Hi, thanks, Lauren, and good morning. Again, I'm Clifford Brown. I lead our Knoxville Intelligence Operations Center here in Knoxville, and it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. So a little bit about Accenture. In fact, we just had our Q4 earnings call this morning, and I got a quick updated number. I was going to say we're 600,000 people, but we're actually 624,000 people around the world in offices in 200 cities and 50 countries. Our purpose? To deliver on the promise of technology and human ingenuity. I know that sounds kind of high-minded, but that human ingenuity really understands and reflects the need for the best people to come alongside to make that a reality. We are committed to creating inclusive and accessible workplaces in Knoxville, and we do this through 12 employee resource groups sharing common backgrounds, experiences, or interests. Some interesting numbers too. One of the things that I really am proud about Accenture on is we really do walk the walk. 46% of our company is now women on our way to gender parity by 2025. And that's pretty impressive, especially when I consider some of the patriarchal cultures that we work in around the globe. We recently were, for the fourth consecutive year, made the top 3 ranking in the Refinitiv Global Diversity and Inclusion Index, all because we know that an inclusive, a diverse workforce leads to engagement, it leads to innovation, and positively impacts the communities where we work and where we live. So because of this, we are incredibly proud to sponsor the talent ecosystem. Many thanks to the Knoxville Chamber for hosting this today, and to all our panelists for giving so generously of their time. So that, Lauren, thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Clifford. And thank you to Accenture for your focus in diversity and inclusion. Okay, let's get started. First, I would love for everyone on the panel to introduce themselves. And if you'll tell us just a little bit about your particular role as well. Let's start with Commissioner Turner.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for having me. My name is Brad Turner. I'm the Commissioner for the State Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Really excited to be here. I also want to take just a quick second to introduce my teammate that's here with us today, Carrie Brna, who is the Director of Employment Innovation and Community Inclusion. Really excited to be here and looking forward to a great discussion. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. I think you said it all. I'm Carrie Brna, and I'm honored to be here speaking with you all today. Thank you, Lauren.
Great. Mike?
Thank you so much, Lauren, for having me here. I'm honored to be here and excited to have this conversation. I think it's something that we just don't get the opportunity enough to express where these populations are and the ways to connect them to employers. So I'm really excited. I'm the Assistant Director at Disability Resource Center here in Knoxville. I've been here for almost 2 years, and it's almost entirely been through COVID. So that's been my experience at DRC. We're a center for independent living, which essentially means that we work with any people who have disabilities, who have some level of independence that they're trying to reach and maybe aren't quite there yet. And employment, of course, is a big part of that. So I'll cut myself off there.
Great. Todd?
My name's Todd Gilbert, and Lauren, second what Mike and Brad and Carrie have said. Thankful to be here. I'm Vice President of Programs at Knox Area Rescue Ministries, the largest homeless service provider in East Tennessee. I have the privilege of overseeing all of our programs on the main campus, 10 of them to be exact, each one focusing on different aspects of homeless ministry, from street outreach to emergency services, transitional and residential recovery services, all trying to prepare people to get outside of our walls, live outside of our walls, and sustain outside of our walls, be an active part of our community. Employment is a big part of that.
Great. Brandon?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Brandon Ledford. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for Centro Hispano de East Tennessee. We are the Latino serving nonprofit for the region. We promote civic engagement and empowerment through education, workforce development, and youth and family initiatives. And our vision is to see every Latino and Latina in East Tennessee thriving culturally, educationally, and economically.
Thank you. And Keira?
Hi, I'm Keira Wyatt. I am the Executive Director for C.O.N.N.E.C.T Ministries, your hands-on community network and resource center. And one of our many programs is the Connect Works for You Workforce Development Program. It is a program that is designed exclusively for people who have barriers. They may have handicaps, they may come out of prison, they may be aging out of the foster care, they may be employable but may not have a GED or high set, or whatever the deficit is. We really want to train people in the area of manufacturing, but that job readiness training is to make sure that they have the group concepts, the production concepts, and that they are ready to work for any manufacturer in the region. Thank you for having me today. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. This next question will be for everyone, and I'll call on you individually for you to answer. With the specific population that you provide services to, what are the benefits of hiring within that population? And then if there are any misconceptions about hiring within that population, if you'll speak to those. Let's go ahead and start with Todd.
Sure. I'll start with the biggest misconception. I would say the biggest misconception it would be stereotyping, labeling all homeless individuals as lazy. In fact, what I would say a better way of looking at it is they struggle with apathy. The longing for, the desire for, the love for, the seeking for nothing. They struggle with a lack of hope. So I'll segue in now a benefit in hiring our people. When hope is ignited to people who are broken, you will get the hardest working, most dedicated, loyal people you will ever find because they are so thankful. Gratitude just abounds in them. And our people, there's no one size fits all. People from all beliefs, backgrounds, ethnicities, skill sets, education. Life throws a curveball at all of us. And when people don't have a community, they wind up homeless. And so when you're getting people, you're not getting people who, you'll get some people who don't have an 8th grade education, who don't have a high school education. But you'll also get people who do, who have rebounded once hope is ignited. They've got their GED, they've got their high set. Some have bachelor's degree, master's degree. We have people with PhDs. The last thing I'll say, benefit hiring our people is when you hire somebody who is homeless or formerly homeless, because a lot of times it's that transition piece when they find meaningful employment, you are making an investment in the community because a lot of our people come in with that hopelessness of all I'm good for is working towards disability, working towards living off the government. And when hope is ignited, they find value in who they are and they seek after something more. And it's an investment, not just in the individual, but into our community.
Todd, your passion for your work shines through in your comments. So thank you so much. Mike, would you care to answer?
Sure, no problem. I'm going to keep mine concise as possible. I'm going to start with the benefits of hiring people with disabilities. As a general rule of thumb, people with disabilities are reliable employees and have an overall higher job retention rate. There's been several studies that have shown that people with disabilities take less absent days and they're more likely to stay on the job longer. I've had several anecdotal cases, probably hundreds at this point, of that sort of being the case, even just within our own community when there are people with disabilities hired somewhere. In general, again, workers with disabilities increase the diversity in a workplace, and that kind of diversity where it doesn't really discriminate in terms of race, gender. You can have a disability regardless of who you are, what color you are, or anything. It's interesting because it kind of brings people together in that way. And I think it certainly makes people who come into the business perhaps feel more comfortable if they've had an experience either with a disability or some other minority status. The third thing, as far as benefits, the bottom line, you can increase your consumer market and revenue. The disability community represents $1 trillion market segment. And I think the last numbers that I saw regarding the number of people with disabilities in the population is somewhere in the range of 1 out of every 4 persons. Disability is a very wide range in terms of the term itself. So when you say disability, you might picture someone who's using a wheelchair or someone with an intellectual disability. But there are many other things that qualify as a disability. And, by virtue of that, there are a lot more people who have a disability than maybe you would realize at first glance. Just a couple of myths and sort of things to squash those myths. One myth: people with disabilities are inspirational, courageous, and brave for being able to overcome their disability. And that might sound like, what do you mean? That's a positive thing. Well, in reality, people with disabilities are simply carrying on normal activities of living when they work their jobs, when they go grocery shopping, when they pay their bills, when they compete in events, whatever it might be. And having a mindset of normality, or treating others who have disabilities as having a difference, but they are normal for every other way in their life. It really, I think, helps us to grasp maybe not being so afraid of hiring someone with a disability. So even those good intentioned and well-meaning words like inspirational can do a little more damage than good. People with disabilities need to be protected from failing. That's another myth that just continues to be an issue, where it feels like we have to protect people with disabilities. The reality is that people with disabilities have a right to participate in the full range of human experiences, including success and failure. And employers should have the same expectations of and work requirements for all employees. I don't want any of the employers who might be listening to think that we want you to lower the bar for the individuals that we might suggest as a good fit for a hire. It is something that is not sustainable if we were to do that. And I think I will cut it off there. So that's my answer to that question.
Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you for pointing out that they are not their disability. That was a great point. Thank you. Let's now go to Brandon.
Thank you. I think I'll start probably with the misconception. And I think one of the largest ones that we encounter is the misconception that a lower level of English is associated with a lower level of education. So a lot of times our immigrant population moves to the United States and they have really developed skill sets and they have PhDs and they have skills that they're able to offer to our workforce, yet we discount them with that because we have the language barrier there. So I think the biggest misconception that we can work around there is being open to the idea that, yes, the language barrier might be there and might have a bit of a communication breakdown with some things. However, the skills and the work ethic that are there that we can really tap into when it comes to long-term development for employees.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Such a great point. Now let's go to Keira.
All right. The stereotypes of a person that is coming out of incarceration, because that's one of the main focuses that we have with the Connect Works for You program. We are really looking for people that have barriers, and a lot of the folks that we have hired are people who have had criminal histories. And I just want to give you some fast facts that there's about 600,000 people that are released from prison every year. And we're all familiar with all the different tricores and different manufacturing plants behind the wall. So you have a workforce that has already been developed in most cases, that when people are released, they're ready to work. However, if you have policies that inhibit them from becoming gainfully employed, then here's your workforce that's not employed, and then you start seeing recidivism rates going back up. So that misconception that they're lazy is not true. Most of the prisons around the United States have some type of workforce development program. They have call centers, they have manufacturing plants for heat, HVAC. It's just so many things behind the walls that people don't know. So when you are hiring someone that's coming straight out of prison that already has a skill set, that is to our advantage because you don't have to train them. And then not only that, but just the routine of getting up every day, being on a time schedule. Once they come out, if we have something for them to do, and that's a part of our wraparound, that's a part of our urban cowboy. Once they get out, we want to make sure that they are ready to go to work. And if there's some deficits, then we want to support them so they will not want to go back.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your comments and your statistics, especially about recidivism. Knox County has the highest recidivism rate out of the metros in Tennessee. And the number one indicator of potential recidivism, which just means going back to prison within 3 years of release, is joblessness. So we definitely have some work to do in that regard. So thank you to Connect Ministries for helping with that. And then finally, Commissioner Turner and Carrie, if you all will speak as well.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak here. And I want to kind of parrot a little bit about what Mike said around the idea of hiring folks with disabilities. I think one of the big things that we've seen companies take away from that is not just a culture shift, but actually the analysis for themselves, kind of a self-analysis about some of the preconceived notions that the corporate identity had about hiring people with disabilities. A lot of times when I go in to speak with companies, many of the first things that I hear from them about reasons are why they can't do it instead of why they can and should do it. So we're still working to break down some of those barriers as far as challenges for hiring folks with disabilities in Tennessee, is really breaking through some of those, not just glass ceilings, but really concrete ceilings for our population. But I think when companies end up hiring individuals with disabilities, they find out exactly what they were hoping to find out, that you've got folks with a really strong skill set, strong work desire, the ability to actually be at work every day, and recognizing someone's full potential instead of guessing what they might be able to do. There's actually evidence-based information that we have that Carrie can share with you around why it's the right thing to do. And some of the things that we've seen in a job market right now that is hungry for talent. We still have companies that are overlooking folks with disabilities when they've got skill sets that are really ready to go to work right now to try to help companies. So with that, Lauren, I'm going to kind of pivot to Carrie and let her provide some feedback as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. And Mike and Commissioner Turner really did hit on the high points of hiring people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I just want to bring up a couple of points. The first is there's a lot of misconceptions around hiring people with disabilities. And one of them is, am I going to have to do something special to get people into my workforce? What's the accommodations going to look like? Is that going to be really expensive? And all of that is just simply not true. I can throw out some numbers specifically. Every $1 spent in accommodations comes back from $10 to $35 in return for the company. And so it really is a good investment to make your workforce your work situation more accessible to people with disabilities. And then finally, through the department and through our service providers, we're able to provide the supports to ensure people are successful. And so you kind of have to think creatively about how you're looking at your potential job openings and who might fit, who might be a good employee there. So specifically, we have some really great technology that we can provide people to be successful on the job. We've got some, someone may just have an app on their phone that has task prompting and reminding, or perhaps they have a button that they can push and access a job coach right on the spot. And so we really are creative with how we think about how we support people on the job to ensure they are successful. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Carrie, your comments are really going to help me segue right into my next question, which is for Mike. Mike, for the disabled worker community, are there job coaches or individuals that can assist the employee with onboarding at their new position?
There are both of the I would say the two main state programs that are associated with helping individuals with disabilities get employment and stay employed, VOC Rehab and ECF Choices, Employment and Community First Choices. Both of those are, by design, they have job coaching built into their services. And the other side of that too is if someone is a client of those services and they are coming in and getting hired, that work opportunity tax credit that businesses can get from hiring someone with a disability, it's a very easy pathway at that point because they're getting those state services. That's what the survey says that you fill out to signify that you are hiring someone with a disability. And then it's the tax credit comes from giving them either a part-time or a full-time position. But with the job coaching specifically, for VOC Rehab, these are just an example of the kinds of things that are done. They'll provide on-site training to familiarize the individual with specific job demands. They'll assist in the development of positive relationships with coworkers and supervisors. A huge portion of job coaching is helping the communication piece. So whereas the individual can do the work and can handle the tasks, sometimes it's a matter of being able to communicate between the manager and the individual and just bridging the gap so that there isn't misunderstandings, or the manager doesn't have to stress or spend as much time adapting themselves necessarily to a different communication style. Hopefully that happens naturally over time. But, realistically, I know that we want the path of least resistance, and job coaches are just a tremendous asset when it comes to those kinds of things. With ECF Choices, they have several types of job coaching that's available. They even have part of their program where they can pay a coworker to help the individual with the disability on the job instead of a job coach, hoping to build those natural supports, which is always the long-term goal anyways. So certainly there are just numerous resources when it comes to job coaching. Our organization does that as a CRP for VOC Rehab, so as a community resource provider. And there are several others just in Knoxville alone that provide that same service. So there's a lot of choices and different organizations. There's no reason not to have a job coach if someone needs that.
And just to emphasize what Mike just said, there's no reason to not have a job coach. It's really important in that first onboarding process to help everyone feel supported, employer and employee. And that will promote longevity in those new employees as well.
Definitely.
Thank you, Mike. Staying with the disabled worker community, Commissioner Turner, can you speak a little bit about the Employment First Task Force?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. Thanks. That's a great topic for us to discuss. So just to give a very brief history there, the Employment First idea is really about 20 years old. Started in the early 2000s with the idea that the end game for persons with disabilities was actually to create opportunities for employment to be the first and preferred method for those folks to be engaged in our community. And in 2013, Governor Haslam signed Executive Order 28, which promoted that to say this is something that Tennessee believes in. And as we started coming out of an institution-based setting, some folks might be interested to know that less than 10 years ago, Tennessee had institutions for Tennesseans with disabilities. So there were adults that were housed there for their entire life cycle and did not have the opportunity to be engaged in their community or actually go to work or build those types of relationships that you and I take for granted. So employment first is really important. We've created a task force that we've worked very closely with Vanderbilt on to really promote that idea across the state in all 95 counties that employment is something that we're striving for every Tennessean with disabilities, if that's something that they want to do, and finding very progressive companies that want to work with us to make sure that we meet that goal. So it's something that's really the foundational basis for how we pursue these types of arrangements and engagements with companies. But most importantly, I think it's the right moral thing for us to do, and it's the right thing from an integrity and character perspective, is to create these types of avenues for Tennesseans with disabilities to really thrive in employment settings. And as Mike just alluded to, we have ways that we can provide support methods where companies can feel like they've actually got partners in the program and they're not going to be kind of left alone to do their own thing. And Carrie might want to add a few things to that, Lauren, but I think employment first is really at the heart of what we're trying to do here in Tennessee.
So the commissioner really did hit on the high points. The only thing I'll add is the work of the task force has really been focused on removing barriers to people accessing that employment. And so we do that through, we have 9 state agencies part of the task force, and we look at our policies and we make sure that we're aligning our policies to support employment. We work on identifying best practices, aligning our service delivery system, and identifying funding streams, all in an effort to support, making sure people have access to competitive integrated employment in their communities. And so we've done a lot of great work, and we're currently really focused on supporting transitioning youth to make sure that people are prepared to enter the workforce. They have the supports they need, they have the knowledge that they need, to be successful in the workforce before they even reach the employer's door looking for that job. And so certainly there's a lot of work to be done, but it's really great to have that focused effort on removing those barriers across the state agencies, across our partners in Tennessee. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you both. I love, Commissioner Turner, the word thrive. It's about thriving, not just surviving, right? So the 2020 census results, which were just released last month, showed that the Hispanic population in the Knoxville area has grown by 87%. So Brandon, I would love to ask you, as our local employers are hiring more members of the Latino community, what are some ways that they can create a more welcoming environment that will promote longevity within the workforce?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. It's obviously no secret that the Latino population in Tennessee is booming. We have one of the fastest growing Latino populations in the nation. So there definitely are opportunities for employers to really create that environment of inclusivity for the Latino population. I think one of the biggest ways that can be done is deconstructing the language barrier. And that can be something from as simple as having your employee manual available in Spanish as well, or making sure that the signs at your facility also have English and Spanish on them, so that way there isn't any confusion when it comes to something as simple as navigating a factory, for example. And I think that with that, there are also ways that employers can enrich the investment that put into their employees, like offering English classes for your employees and their spouses as sort of a development for them professionally and personally. I think another thing that we would like to see more of is creating that cultural awareness and celebrating those different cultures that are within the workforce. One simple way to do that is acknowledging that it's Hispanic Heritage Month that started on September 15th. And so celebrating those cultures and celebrating and really creating a welcoming environment for them when they come into a business. And I think another way that we can help provide that longevity and that retainment is really having those open conversations. Unfortunately, when you have a conversation with a leader who is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're going to have a different story than when you talk to that employee in Spanish and hear how they really feel about the welcomeness that is within the organization. So creating those open conversations, having that cultural awareness, and really making it known that, those employees are welcome there by the little things that you can do by having things available in Spanish throughout the building and the facility is really a way to welcome them and let them know that they are part of the workforce and that they are part of the environment that you're trying to create.
Thank you, Brandon. And we are excited to partner with Brandon and his team for an event for Hispanic Heritage Month. So you can check that out on our Eventbrite page on our website. Todd, would you be able to tell us some specific skills that the homeless population learns in your Abundant Life program and then the Clean Start program?
Absolutely, Lauren. Our Abundant Life Kitchen program is designed for people who are interested in going into food service. And so inside of that, they learn how to use kitchen equipment, measurements, we call it kitchen math, knife skills, cooking terms, cooking techniques, how to use spices, food preparation, food safety. They ultimately take a test which leads to certification and being certified in something called ServSafe, which gives them a leg up on the community and in applying for different jobs around Knoxville. Our Clean Start program would be the same thing, similar to our Abundant Life Kitchen program, only it's for those interested in housekeeping. They will take tests and learn how to be and become OSHA certified. They'll learn how to do proper disinfection, basic chemistry, cleaning and sanitation, how to take care of hard floors, carpet care, etc. If I can, Lauren, a little bit about our philosophy with work and with our guests is we believe that no one is so poor that they don't have something to contribute. That one-way giving ultimately diminishes the dignity of the recipient. That if you give to someone freely without saying, hey, you have something to contribute once, you get anticipation, twice appreciation, 3 times expectation, 4 times you have created entitlement. And if you do that 5 times, you have created dependency. And so all throughout our building, we have opportunities, not just in food service, not just in housekeeping, but in grounds and maintenance, administration, hospitality, information technology, IT, and retail. So when you come through our building and you see someone at the front desk or you call someone, you may not be talking to a staff member. You may be talking to somebody who's focused on getting valuable training to move forward and hopefully get meaningful employment. And so it's exciting opportunities all throughout our building and prepping people to live outside our walls.
I would like to point out that the occupation groups that Todd just mentioned, we know are some of the hardest hit right now in lack of employees. And so I know we have some people on the call who are needing some housekeeping, grounds maintenance, kitchen cooks, things like that. So I would definitely encourage you to get in touch with Todd over at CARM. Okay, Miss Keira, I know that you have a well-established reentry program that works with homeless population and ex-offenders. At what stage in a person's rehabilitation does Connect Ministries get involved? And then what skills and training do you provide?
From the beginning, the sooner the better. When someone is first incarcerated, we start the process then if they're in our program. And then if you've got people who have just been out of prison or homelessness for 2 or 3 years, we start where they are. So it is very important that people have that support system and that the case management piece and the wraparound services are in place. Some of the weaknesses in a continuum of care is when you do have fragmented services and we don't have the resources to continue. For example, you've got some folks that are coming out of incarceration with some mental health issues. You've got people suffering from PTSD, and those things we have to address if they're going to be successful in really celebrating life and coming up with their plans for their lives and their families. You have so many barriers that are deterrents, especially when the person is coming out of incarceration. You've got child support and you've got so many things that most people don't have to deal with every day, and it's overwhelming. And when you don't have those coping skills, it's much easier to go back where you have 3 hots and a cot. So we really encourage people to get connected with a mentor. Make sure that they're connected to a church. Make sure that they have a support system. So we offer that rehabilitation service, like you had asked, when they first come out, but we want to start while they're incarcerated, so they will start building those relationships. So when they come out, it's just not starting from the beginning, but you've already got a plan well in place so we can help them to succeed. And we've got, I'll tell you, we've been doing this for a long time and we've got a long way to go. Let me just be very honest. People do not embrace people with criminal histories. Although a lot of people do have them, that's our workforce. And especially in the African American community, when you start looking at the racial disparities and you're looking at, we only represent about 13% of the total population in the United States, but 65% of the incarcerated men and women are African American. And so we have that barrier to just overcome. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Thank you for highlighting those statistics. I think it's very important for us all to hear that. So I definitely appreciate that. Now, I know everyone on the call in our audience is familiar with the high number of unfilled positions that we have in our area. So I would like each of our panelists to answer this question. Where can our local companies go to expand their talent pipeline to the population that you provide services for? And if your organization can help, let us know who our employers should reach out to. Brandon, let's start with you for this one.
Yeah, thank you so much. Centro Hispano actually hosts a job board on our website, which is one of the best ways that you can advertise positions that you have open. It is the one centralized location where we have clients who come in who might be seeking employment, where we direct them. We can also encourage them for different jobs that are available that fit in with their skill sets. So I definitely think that's one of the best ways that you could reach our population, because that is one of the first places that we direct folks to go to.
Thank you. Mike?
Sure. One of the nicest things about the Knoxville job market related to hiring people with disabilities is we've got a group or an organization called the Knoxville Area Employment Consortium, which is a conglomeration of all of these agencies. There's so many of them that participate in disability employment initiatives in one way or another. And through the KAEC, there is a single point of contact, which is another huge tool when it comes to if you want to reach out and start that conversation and kind of get your feelers out there in order to see what kinds of business or what kinds of agencies might be able to provide some potential employees. I would highly recommend reaching out to KAC and the single point of contact. Her name is Paula Jones, and I can provide that information so we can maybe have it emailed out afterwards, if that's. And I will real quick make a plug for the KAC has a 2021 National Disability Employment Awareness Month. A virtual celebration. It's virtual this year, of course. It'll be on October 26th from 12 noon until 1:30. And I could send all this, I could actually send the flyer. I know it'll be backwards on here, but it's a really neat planned event with a keynote speaker being Ron Freeman, the CFO of Ingalls. Lori Tucker from WATE is going to be there. Glenn Jacobs, our county mayor, and India Kincannon, our city mayor, will be there also. So it's going to be a really great event. It's worth tuning into. And as an employer, you're going to build those connections that, you can then know who to reach out to and kind of follow up with from there.
Thank you so much. Let's have Commissioner Turner and Carrie speak to add to the disabled community conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Actually, one of the things you can do is actually just reach out directly to our department and Carrie's team. So we do have a regional office that's located there in Knoxville. But we're happy to connect you with any of the providers that might be in your area. So we have multiple offices across the state. Obviously, in this instance, the Knoxville location is the closest. So you can either reach out to our regional office, or you can go directly to Carrie and her team, and I'll kind of pivot to her to let her share her contact information and kind of what that process looks like to get the ball rolling. Carrie.
Thank you, Commissioner Turner. And Mike, I was really excited to hear you mention the Knoxville Area Employment Consortium, because that was the first top of mind. That's a really strong group. And so Knoxville is really fortunate to have that group advocating for people with disabilities. And so to pivot to Commissioner Turner's statement, I'd be happy to facilitate any connections that need to be made on the local level. Certainly, I'll have Lauren send out my email address after the meeting, and I'm happy to connect you with our local providers. And they really are the best ones to help fill those positions, because they are the one working directly with the potential employees, and they'll know, who's looking for what type of job and so forth. And so, all that work really does happen on the local level, but certainly I'm great to be that, initial point of contact for the IDD. Thank you.
Thank you. Keira?
Our Director of Operations is Monica Reed. So the Connect Works for You is the program that's the workforce development program. The Urban Cowboy Restoration Program is the reentry program. So if anybody wants to participate, whether they're incarcerated now, if there's a family member that wants to get them started before they are released, contact us at area code 865-851-8005. Connect Ministries will get you in touch with both Ms. Monica Reed, the Director of Operations for Connect Works for You, and then for the Urban Cowboy Restoration Program as well. Go on the website and you can find out a little bit more information. Connect Ministries at www.connectministries.net.
Thank you so much. And Todd?
I'll provide the information to Lauren that can go out, but you can reach out to us directly. You can go to our website and send an email out to info@carm.org. You can reach out to our CARM Works coordinator, Eve Cameron, and I'll provide her email address. She's the one that works with agencies all across our community, establishes the partnerships, and connects people who've been vetted in our programs to those agencies. You're also welcome to come on site for a tour with us. We call it the I Had No Idea tour. And so you're welcome to give us a call. We'd love to connect you with Eve, let you see some of our programs, potentially meet some of our students.
Thank you. I would like to remind everybody that we do have a Q&A panel on your screen. If you have any questions for any of the panelists, please go ahead and put those in now. And while you do that, I would just like to recognize some of our additional workforce service providers on the call. I know that Ronnie Chandler with Project Grad has joined us this morning. As Mike and Carrie both mentioned, the Knox Area Employment Consortium, we have Stacy Spangler joining us this morning. So we appreciate you. With the American Job Center, we have Jennifer Epley and Ginger Armstrong joining us. And then, as Mike also mentioned, vocational rehabilitation, which we, for short, Voc Rehab, if you ever hear that term, Angie Respis is on the call. And we have, I think we may have someone from Sertoma, another great local organization as well. And I know we have quite a few more on the call, so thank you so much. I don't see any questions right now. So we may just be able to give you back a few minutes of your time this morning. I hope, we just see one. Okay. How many workers does your organization get jobs for each year? Would anyone in particular like to answer that?
I don't mind beginning. It varies each year. So this past year, we had a little bit less than we typically do due to lower numbers with COVID. Our population was just less transient, but it's anywhere between 50 and 60 finding meaningful employment.
Thank you, Todd. If anyone else wants to answer that, just let me know. And again, if there are any questions anybody has, please still feel free to pop one in. Yes, Ms. Keira.
Because we have an in-house work program that our workforce development program is paid, we have hired, just last year, we've had 40 to 45 people come through. And that's not including the people that we refer out because of employers looking for jobs. Since we're working directly with homeless folks and folks that have been affected by COVID, no telling how many have been hired. We don't have the capacity to follow up, but we know that we have probably given out 200 or 300 employment referrals to different agencies and industries.
Great, thank you. So if anyone this morning didn't have their pen and paper handy, please don't fret. We will send you an email with all of the contact information that our panelists gave today. I do also want to mention that on the Knoxville Chamber's website, that's just knoxvillechamber.com, you can view our workforce service providers directory. That is a directory of our local organizations who provide workforce services. You can sort it by population, and you can look at each individual organization's website and information on the services that they provide. And again, such a valuable resource in our community to create new talent pipelines within these populations. As I mentioned before, driving regional economic prosperity means economic prosperity for all. Panelists, thank you so much for your time this morning. Our region is so lucky to have each and every one of you supporting its workforce. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and thank you for joining.
Bye. Thank you.